Okay. Apologize now for the emails that are going to be coming, repeating this same information. Okay, I'm going to week 5. I was working on this over the weekend and had a lot of the material up here mixed with 4. Uh, Went to bed at 3 o'clock and didn't straighten it out. I got told about that. So now it is, of course, straightened out. And the week 5 assignment is chapter 10. I think I've used up a lot of our time already today. So we'll go over it with you. I'll go over it with you on Thursday as to what you need to outline, okay, for chapter 10. Of course, you could always be gung ho and just outline the whole chapter. Uh, that's not even activated yet. Now it is. Okay. There is a list of terms for lecture exam 1, which is a week from today. Okay, so let's click that. Okay, these are terms that I used in lecture. If you review the lecture notes, you'll find, I believe, every one of these terms and a description of what it means. Okay, you're looking at it now and thinking, we didn't go over all those terms. Yes, we did. Every single one of these terms. So what you need to do in trying to study for these is just go through in your mind and pick one out. Okay, origin, picking origin. It's referring to muscles. That's the part of the muscle that stays put during contraction. You don't write it out. You think it out to yourself. Do you know in your mind what the origin means? If you do, go on to the next one, do insertion. When you find some that you don't know, either write them down, print this page out, put checks by them, and be sure that you do know them by the time the test comes in a week. Okay? Because any and all of these terms can appear on that examination. Okay. Okay, now we're into a different world altogether. Today, we start the digestive system. Okay, you're going to be reading about the muscle system in chapter 10. And when you review your notes for the lecture exam, you're going to review the lecture material. All the material that you're going to review is indented, as I showed you last week. Review that, please, to get your best score. Anything else that you do will probably help too. Okay, so the digestive system is not going to be on the test next week. We've gotten ahead. Okay, functions of the digestive system. The first one is called mechanical digestion. Mechanical digestion is just like taking a hammer to a walnut and crushing, but you're not changing it chemically. You're just knocking it into smaller and smaller pieces. When you chew celery, that's mechanical digestion. You're not changing it chemically. This is the breakdown of food to smaller size without chemical change. The other type of digestion is chemical digestion, and it's a breakdown of food, but you have chemical change. Starch turns to sugar. Proteins become amino acids. When you eat a potato or when you eat a soda cracker, okay, and you chew it long enough, one, it's disgusting to think about, but if you chew it long enough, it'll turn sweet on you. Okay. That's because the starch or carbohydrate is chemically digested to sugar. Proteins broken down to amino acids. We have another class of foods that are emulsified, and this is to break down smaller lipid droplets or break down lipid into smaller droplets so that they can be absorbed. Okay, lipid, the butter that you might put on a potato, peanut butter that you may still like, okay, any sort of fat. Okay. Fat cannot be chemically digested. It's a separate category. It's emulsified. That means broken down to smaller particles, but it's still the same. If you've ever had a load of dishes in the sink at night and you realize I didn't do the dishes or I didn't want to do the dishes, so you squirt in some Dawn, plug up the drain, turn on the water, and the suds are beautiful and everything's white. You don't see the dishes, and you can go ahead and go to bed. But when you wake up in the morning, there they are again. Suds are gone, and there may be a coagulation or a grouping of lipids right in the middle of the sink. The lipids attract each other, and you got this big glob of fat. Okay, so think about that for just a second. Take a fork, stick it into the glob of fat, and swish it around and break it up to smaller pieces. That's emulsification. That's what your digestive system will do to lipids as well. Okay, so we have mechanical, chemical, and emulsification as means of initial digestion. Then the material can also then, of course, hit the stomach. And the stomach's main function, although it has others, is the storage of food. It also certainly can break down proteins. The stomach also can do limited amount of absorption, not much. And the stomach also produces some hormones. But here we're talking about it as for food storage. If it weren't for the stomach, we would be like hummingbirds looking for food all of the time. Now we can take a larger amount in, store it, go off and do something for a change. We can do anything, fly a plane, build a plane, design a plane, none of which we could do without the stomach. The Parthenon would never have been built. The Eiffel Tower never have been built if it hadn't been for the stomach giving us the time to do these things. So I consider storage of food a really fundamental function of the stomach. Then in the rest of the digestive system, the absorption of the nutrients. Those nutrients that were broken down in steps 1, 2, and 3, and some in the stomach. Now you've got very small nutrients, and primarily they're absorbed by the small intestine. Okay. There is no absorption of nutrients in the colon, the large intestine. Instead of the large intestine, we have the compaction of waste and reabsorption of water. When we see food coming and we're wanted, our digestive system pumps at least a quart, sometimes more, of water out of the circulatory system and into the chambers of the digestive system to act as a medium for the digestion that's going to take place. Can't afford to lose that water, so we reabsorb it in the colon, and the waste is compacted incidentally. Components of the digestive system, we can break it down into many, but we have two that are rather important. The GI tract, gastrointestinal tract, sometimes called alimentary canal. I probably would scratch that out, but some people still use it. Almost nobody ever says gastrointestinal tract. It's always just GI tract. And this is any part of the digestive system through which the food that's being processed passes. Well, let's take a marble. You're not going to be able to digest a glass marble. But if you swallow it from in to out, it's passing completely through the GI tract. Okay? We have some organs called accessory organs, part of the digestive system, but they are not part of the GI tract. The marble would not enter them at all. These accessory organs contribute, though, to digestion and absorption. The best to point out, the pancreas, the liver, the gallbladder, and our salivary glands. Those are all accessory organs. We have an image here. Actually, we have several images at the side of the head. Just as a reference point, here's the hard palate, which is really, of course, the palatine process of the maxilla. I know you know that because you did so well on the test last Thursday. You have three areas that'll be defined and labeled in just a moment. You have this area here. It's above your soft palate. Hard palate, bony. Soft palate, not. You can run your tongue above on your roof of your mouth and run it backwards. And some of you have tongues long enough to feel the soft portion. Hard palate, soft palate. Above the soft palate, sometimes things get in there. And this is the nasopharynx. Don't worry about the term just yet. It's in a future image. But located in that area, above the soft palate and at the back, is this structure here. This is the pharyngeotonsil. The pharyngeotonsil is also commonly called the adenoids. Down here, right underneath the soft palate, and on the side of the mouth on either side, at the back, is the palatine tonsil, which we just usually think of as tonsils. They try to have people keep their tonsils if they can, but some people have so many infections and such that they have to have theirs out. The longer you wait, age-wise, the more excruciating it becomes. Have any of you had yours out? I guess not. Lucky. Okay. Having your tonsils out is actually nothing to worry about or be ashamed of. You're taking care of your health, you can assume, and that's never anything to be ashamed of. But let me give you one little piece of advice. that I didn't follow because I don't care. Okay. Do not talk and do not be overheard talking about your health or your finances. Somebody will use that against you. I'm sorry. I'm a realist. Uh, you had brain damage when you were a kid because you were thrown up in a car accident against the post. Oh, well, then you shouldn't get the promotion, you know? Uh, maybe you're not qualified. Don't talk about it. Now, if you had a filling in your tooth, that's nothing, right? Talk about it all you want. Okay, the uvula, the part that hangs down the soft palate, it has a couple of functions. One is contrived, that is to uh, make certain sounds in speech, especially German speech, uh, and the uvula vibrates. But in swallowing, often the uvula can come up and close off the entrance into the nasal cavity through the nasal pharynx. Close it off. Doesn't work all that great. When you're swimming, you quite often get water up in your nose. Okay? You can get it from this direction, or you can get it from the forward direction. The epiglottis, now you may wonder what I'm pointing at here. This color, I believe, is baby blue to indicate cartilage. And when you swallow something, it clamps down, it folds down, and the food that you swallowed must continue down this tube towards the stomach and not enter into this larger tube, which is the larynx. Okay, the pharynx, this is the portion of the GI tract from the exit of the nasal cavity to the larynx. So the exit of the nasal cavity is right here. Nasal cavity itself is here. Your nostrils are called external nares, and there'll be a label for that in a second. Inside of your nasal cavity, which is further subdivided actually into 6 parts, the air that you breathe in or you're breathing out passes through this orifice called the internal nares. And then after the internal nares and above the soft palate, you have the nasopharynx. Below that, the oropharynx. And below that, the laryngopharynx. Now, let's start with the oropharynx. When you open your mouth and look back at your tonsils, because I bet you did, okay? And you look straight back, maybe with a flashlight shining in the mirror, you can see sort of a rounded outline and see to the back of your GI tract. All that you can see is the oral pharynx. Above that, you can't see. But have you ever been to the movies, got popcorn, got down to the bottom especially, and got a popcorn shell stuck up there? And you start coughing, sometimes sneezing as well. You can't stop. You have to leave the theater. It's happened to me a number of times. I get panicked. I keep coughing. And I think maybe it'll never come down. It always has. Okay. That's the nasal pharynx, oral pharynx. And then the laryngopharynx is that part of the pharynx directly opposite the opening into the larynx. Here's our epiglottis again. Another view. Nasopharynx up here, down to here, contains the pharyngeal tonsils. The oral pharynx contains the palatine tonsils, and the laryngeal pharynx is roughly the size or length of the GI tract from the opening to the bottom of the larynx. Salivary glands, okay, the first accessory gland, but still associated, of course, with the head. All glands have lobes. All glands have lobes. If you think of the head of cauliflower, it's all busted up into different lobes. If you look at the head of broccoli, the same sort of thing. The parotid glands produce salivary amylase. That's an enzyme that breaks down starch. There's 3 sets of these salivary glands. We'll name them all in just a moment. Here are the 3 sets. The parotid glands, picture to come. These are drained by the parotid duct. The older name for the parotid duct is Stenson's duct. I still actually prefer it. Since either could show up on an exam, I usually will, if I'm asking a question, I'll say such and such parotid, then in quotes, Stenson's duct, so that I'm not trying to fool you or anything. Parotid glands, they're at your temples. We'll see that in a second. The submandibular glands, if you find the angle of your mandible, you remember the angle, put your thumb underneath and push up, you're pushing up against the submandibular glands. Sublingual glands below the tongue and drained by the sublingual ducts, but these vary in number. They all produce the same material, salivary amylase and saliva. The saliva is probably the most important thing that they do because that lubricates the food and makes it easier to swallow. The digestion of amylase by the salivary glands only lasts while you're chewing and haven't swallowed. And then once you do swallow and anything hits the stomach's acidity level is so high that it inactivates the salivary amylase immediately. Some of your parents probably told you something like, at least I hear they do, chew your food 30 times. Do you ever have that? Chew your food 25, 30 times before you swallow. I could never do that. That's disgusting. You're chewing 30 times and you start thinking about what you're doing. Not pleasant. Okay, here are the salivary glands. The products right forward of your ear. The salivary amylase is drained by this duct. This is the parotid duct, also known as Stenson's duct. Here's the submandibular gland. On this side, it's paired. The submandibular duct drains it. That's also known as Wharton's duct, which you'll see in the reading. Again, if I were to ask it, I would give you both names. And here are the salivary sublingual glands underneath the tongue. Now, when you swallow something, the food has, at first, it would seem an opportunity to go down your trachea, which you don't want, or go down the esophagus, which you do want. So the trachea is closed off by the epiglottis during swallowing. And I mean swallowing of food or also liquid. Okay. The esophagus itself is a tube. It's about 10 inches to a foot in length, and it travels behind the heart. So a lot of times when you think you've got maybe a heart problem or something, you actually just have indigestion from this. It punctures through the diaphragm and it terminates at the cardiac sphincter of the stomach, which we'll see very soon. Okay. The upper part of the esophagus, a couple of inches, has skeletal muscle. That allows us to quickly eject material if it's too hot or if we recognize that it's dangerous, the wrong stuff. Some people have poisoned themselves by working with pesticides, pesticide in the bottle. They're drinking something else at the same time. They don't even look, they reach, get the bottle, got the wrong bottle, and they poison themselves. Okay. But fortunately, people realize that quickly, or the body does, and most of the material can be quickly ejected because the top part of the esophagus has skeletal muscle. The rest of the esophagus, the other 8 to 10 inches, is smooth muscle, and that's the esophageal smooth muscle. It contracts behind anything that's swallowed, pushing it forward. And then the next set of smooth muscles contract, and the next, and the next, and the next. Keep pushing something forward. This is like a tube of toothpaste. If you're religious about it, do it right, you start pushing from the bottom. Then you push the toothpaste out through the exit. Anything that is swallowed, intentionally or not, is called a bolus. Because of the skeletal muscle, the upper esophagus is said to be under voluntary control, but the rest of it's not. Once something gets past this upper 2 inches or so, it's on its way to the stomach. Now, if it's something you shouldn't have eaten, the stomach could still signal antiperistalsis, and that's the same as vomiting. Okay. The term peristalsis, I don't see it here, and know it's around. Peristalsis is the movement of a bolus being pushed by smooth muscle towards the stomach. Well, I got a nice definition for it, but I don't have the word itself. Peristalsis. Functions of the stomach. Well, the first one that I mentioned before is storage of food. Chemical digestion of proteins. Okay, that starts in the stomach. Mechanical digestion of every food type. That it means that when anything gets to the stomach and the stomach's churning, that whatever's in the stomach stands to be mechanically broken down. There is some absorption in the stomach, not a lot. Most of the absorption happens in the small intestine. Okay. Alcohol is absorbed pretty quickly in the stomach. Some medications are absorbed by the stomach. Other medications that you may take or may end up taking are coated so that they get through the stomach and they are absorbed instead later on by the small intestine. That's an important difference with medications, coated and uncoated. The uncoated ones often are picked up by the stomach and enter directly into the circulatory system, whereas those that are coated and continue on don't get picked up until they're in the small intestine. When they're picked up by the small intestine, they first go to the liver, not directly into the circulatory system. The liver has a chance to act upon these chemicals or medications. Some of these medications require further action by the liver for them to become active. Here's the way in to the stomach. Here's the esophagus. The cardiac sphincter, not labeled as such here, is right here. A sphincter muscle is a muscle that allows movement in one direction and stops movement in the opposite direction. Lets things through and not the other way. The upper part of the stomach is called the fundus. If you're standing upright and you're drinking something carbonated, Diet Coke, beer, something like that, Arrowhead water, the bubbles of carbonation, CO2, can be captured here. And you may have to find a discreet way to burp, or some people don't care about it being discreet or not, they just do it. And this is why. People with an exaggerated, there are many, exaggerated fungus capture more gas. Inside of the stomach, we have these rhizomes all the way through here. These are rugae. These greatly increase the internal surface area of the stomach, but mainly they push the material that's in the stomach around for mechanical digestion. The exit from the stomach is at the pyloric sphincter. The entrance was here. So let's skip the exit. The pyloric sphincter here. This passageway is the smallest part of the GI tract. If anything can get through there, you get all the rest of the way. Okay. If there's something that cannot get through there, like if you have a cat, and you've got a hairball, and it can't get through there, it's got to go out the other way. It's got to be thrown up. The pylorus is the lower part of the stomach. The fundus was the higher. And between this line and this line is the cardia, the largest part of the stomach. Fundus, cardia, and the pylorus. This cutaway here is meant to show you smoothly muscle in the different ways it's oriented, but I have another slide for that, not this one. The first part of the small intestine here, past the pyloric sphincter, is the duodenum. Okay, so here are the three parts of the stomach: fundus, cardia, pylorus. I said all this so we can just move right past that. The cardia and the pylorus, not the fundus. Those two are considered to be the body of the stomach. Okay, so the body of the stomach is from here to here. Here's our rugae, increase the surface area and help with mechanical digestion. The lateral side of the stomach is called the greater curvature. And a large fatty membrane that attaches to it is called the greater omentum. Here's the stomach. Here's the lateral side of the stomach. And this entire curve here is called the greater curvature. On the medial portion, this is the lesser curvature. The text says that there's a membrane that attaches to the greater curvature. Well, there is. It's not showing in here. It's a huge membrane that covers all the small intestines. It's called the greater omentum, but it can also be called the fatty apron. It protects you against trauma. It protects you against cold. And thin people have next to no greater omentum because it stores fat. Okay, this is where I normally stop, right here. This diagram turns ballistic on us real quick. And so I will be starting there on Thursday. I broke this digestive system lecture up into 3 parts. One that you just saw, 2, the one that's coming here, and the third one is on a cross section of the GI tract. You needn't worry about that. Okay, so I'm just showing you the point right after this lesser greater curvature. Okay, let's take a break if we could till 3:15. Okay. Okay, another chance for questions about anything. Doesn't have to be that little talk. Can be uh, the move back, the test coming up, whatever you'd like. If you're going, the session on Thursday that I'll offer, the discussion section, uh, that's voluntary as far as I'm concerned. If you're enrolled at Bio 110, your grade is dependent upon getting in your study guides on time. That's all. However, it's the opportunity of a lifetime to see some material. I don't know how many of you realize this because I think there were maybe 8 people, 9 people at the discussion, but I showed the entire bone test. No, I didn't. I showed the first 70 questions of the bone test to that group. They didn't know they were seeing it, but that's what they got. Okay. Well, on the other hand, if I look at the overall scores, those 8 didn't do much better than all the rest of the class. They all did very good. Okay. I think the class average is 96 or something like that. That's fine. Now we need to keep it there. Okay. Any questions? Okay, then we're still recording, so go back to the screen share. It's just where we were. I wonder how many of you got this email. This was from the president. We've had a lot of presidents. I've outlived 19 deans. It's just amazing to me. Some of them were useless. Some of them were great. Our president likes to talk and talk and talk on Fridays. Did any of you get these pictures? I don't know if he sent them out to the group. Tell me no, tell me yes.
I didn't get that email.
You
Okay.
didn't? No.
I just
Thank
checked the email and I
No.
didn't.
Okay. Well, this is just talking here about the projects that are going on. Reconstruction of the TAS building. They bought that building in 1990 and it fell apart 10 years later. That's what happens in public schools, where you must go with the lowest bidder. That's what you get. Crap. But the science, I don't know where this was, science building or whatever. This definitely, I don't know, this may be LRC. Sort of looks like the science building, but I don't remember that stairwell.
I think that might be inside the new building because I don't recognize it either.
Yeah. Well, I'll find out if we wander around. Uh, this you recognize?
Science and math building or the old science and math building?
No, this is the library.
Oh, the library. Oh yeah, I see
Yeah.
the little letters in the back. Never mind.
Yeah. And everybody tells me when I ask them how many floors does it have, they say three, 1, 2, and the third one's in here. You know, that's not true. I just thought I'm always fascinated by this myself. There's 4 stories. 1, 2, 3 is up in here, and this cantilever was they thought of this artwork. You know, no, it was not artwork. It was meant to disguise the fact that there's another building right behind it, up on the roof. It's not a full building. It's like a large room. Okay. Does this remind you at all? I know the construction materials on the way here, but does this building, the library, remind you of a fort? Can you see it? Well, that's what most people thought of it as. And that's what it was built to be, a fort. It was built back in 1965, I believe it was, or 67, somewhere along that range. Administrators were all up in this 3rd floor, but you can't see from here. Intentionally, you cannot see it. Okay. The library itself was mostly the 2nd floor. There was some library on the 1st floor, but most of that was photography and such. And there was some library on the 3rd floor too. But the idea was in those days that they wanted to prepare for student unrest. There was student unrest across the United States, but you weren't alive then. But we went through a weird time. And these designers here were so paranoid that they put this hidden room up on the top, and they put doors to it, 2 doors, to get up there behind movable bookcases. I've been there myself. I've seen it. I've had the key to the entire campus on Saturdays. In the old days, we called that Saturday Dean. And I would wander around. I looked everywhere. I went to every office. I had full authority. They shouldn't have given it to me because I'll snoop. And I went in that building, and it's filled with, at that time, it was filled with telephones and lots of chairs, refrigerators, food. It was meant to be a safe place in case the students rioted. The administrators would rush up there and lock themselves in. And from the telephones, they would call the governor to get the militia out here to save them. When you walk by that in the future, if you ever do, take a look up. You'll see it. And if you have my site, and you use the interactive map, take a look at it from the roof down. You'll see what I mean. There's honestly a building up there. Been in it. Okay. Interesting. At least the newer buildings are looking nice. The campus never did. Maybe I shouldn't say that while I'm recording. Okay. Okay, are you seeing the modules? Need to know where we're at. Are you seeing the week 5?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we just had this first lecture on the digestive system. Here's the second part of it. In other words, it's the same text. If you wanted to continue it, because because you think it's more logical to do, just go right to here to 217. I have a fourth practice quiz embedded for you. And I have a fifth practice quiz embedded for you. Okay, so you might want to do them at your leisure right now, but pretty soon, you know how I am. I'll be pushing you to do them. Okay. How muscles are named. This is quick because there are so many darn exceptions. If there were no exceptions, this would be very important. But the size of the muscle often is used in naming the muscle. So for instance, the gluteus maximus, butt muscle, we call it, okay? Maximus meaning large in size. Help you remember that. Or the muscle can be named by location, the temporalis, which is around the ear. You haven't seen that one yet, but you'll understand why it's showing the location. The frontalis, if you simply put your hand on your forehead, you've got most of it right there. That's the frontalis. So size and location. The shape of the muscle is often important. The deltoid muscles, that's your shoulder, has three muscles actually that combine to form the deltoids. They're broad up at the top of your shoulder, and they come down to the deltoid tuberosity at a point. So they are delta shaped. The soleus muscle. Soleus muscle is in the calf of the lower leg, behind the deep to the gastrocnemius. And it looks like a soleus or a sole flatfish. Okay. If you know what a flatfish looks like when we look at it, we haven't looked at it yet, so don't worry. You'll see the connection. Sometimes the insertion is important. Now this usually is much more beneficial to us. The sternomastoideus. The origin is first. The sternum runs to the mastoid process. So those two cord-like muscles that extend upwards from the manubrium of the sternum and spread out right and left to the mastoid processes of the sternomastoideus. The extensor digitorum. The extensor digitorum muscles insert on the digits. Now, I'm not expecting you to memorize anything here as I go through this. What I want you to do is carry the idea with you when you are trying to remember the names of muscles and see how they fit in. Number of origins. The biceps brachii, which flexes your lower arm, upper arm together. The biceps have two heads of origin. And the triceps, of course, have three. The action. Adductor magnus. Magnus means big, okay, but no, that's not an action. But adduction is an action where we bring things towards the midline. Adductor magnus. And then the extensor digitorum longus. Extensor digitorum longus is actually a muscle located in the leg, lower leg, and extends the toes. Okay, extends the toes. So even in your shoes or whatever you're wearing, if you can point or try to point your toes up to the ceiling or to the sky, you're using the extensor digitorum, and the longest refers to one of actually a group of muscles. We'll name it when we actually see it. And then the directions that the muscle fibers travel. The rectus abdominis. Rectus means straight. Abdominis means abdomen. So straight up and down the abdomen, from the xiphoid process to the pubic crest, that's the rectus abdominis muscle. And then the rectus femoris is straight on the femur. So if you were to slap or touch the top of your thigh, not the side or the medial portion, top of your thigh, that's the rectus femoris muscle, and it goes straight down to the patella. Oh, the external oblique got orphaned here on a page by itself. The external oblique muscles. If you were to take your hands and press your sides at the bottom of your ribs, your hands be pointing down, and now make your hands point inward, not 90 degrees inward, about 45. And we'll find later on that's the external oblique. Oblique means at an angle. Okay, I'm going to back up because I think I don't think I did a very good job last week. I want to make sure that you understand why I've got 3 sets of muscles. I have human muscles, condensed and required. Required means that you need to know these muscles, okay, and you need to be able to identify them, okay. You need to know their action, and since it's condensed, you need to know the origin insertion. Okay, this one you first and foremost definitely need the whole thing. The cat muscles are also required. Okay, this is an optional third one. So optional means option. Okay, does it mean that you won't benefit? No. Does it mean that you need to know anything in it to pass the test? No, it doesn't mean that. Okay, it will help. Okay, let's look at this first one, human muscles. Okay, we have to open it here. Okay, this says musculature when we get to it, but you know you came in through human muscles. And so here's the list. These origins, insertions, both have been minimized. Okay, instead of saying or the capitulum of the humerus, it just says humerus. If you want to learn the longer portion, so much the better, you know. But these are sufficient answers for origins and insertions. Okay. And then there's the action. No matter which of the 3 links that I just showed you, they all have the same action. That has not been minimized, reduced, abbreviated. Okay. Instead, they are the same. And they are all actions for humans. Even if you're looking at a cat, they're all human actions. It's the ones we want you to learn. Now, does that make sense that there would be actions on the cat that are human? Well, there's about 60 or so muscles here. And on the 60 that are human, these are 60 actions. On the 60 that are cat, there are about 54 that match. The cat, as different as it will seem to you, the cat has almost the same actions for most of the muscles, by far and away most of the muscles, as the human. Okay. When we're actually in the lab and have a cat in front of us, uh, I can talk to you about the differences. Okay. Hang on. I don't know if you could hear that. Could you hear any background in a moment ago when I was talking? Come on. Could you hear any background outside my window here?
No, I couldn't.
No,
Okay,
couldn't hear anything.
good. But it sure was distracting to me. My neighbors don't get very many visitors, and I've always loved that, but they're here now, and they're from a different culture, and when they get together, they really get together, and uh, that's fine. But unfortunately, it was while I was trying to talk, and I really couldn't concentrate very well. I remember once I was living in San Juan Capistrano, had a mail delivery slot in my front door. On the back side, there's supposed to be a metal screen that slopes down so people can't look in. But mine fell off and I didn't fix it. So one day I was watching TV in the living room and I could hear this noise at the mail slot. Thought the mailman's here. Now look, now here's a bunch of eyes trying to look in. Oh, that ticked me off too. So I go to the door and I pull it open as hard and fast as I could. And without looking at what was on the other side of the door, looking in, I said, "What the hell do you want?" Oh God. You know what it was? It was two little guys from the Catholic school selling candy. And they dropped their boxes of candy and ran. Oh God. I felt pretty bad. So I picked up their candy and went around the neighborhood till I found them and bought it all. They were happy then. So okay. Okay. This is human musculature. I wouldn't know it just by seeing that word. Okay. But I know because I pulled it up from the human muscular tract link. Okay. Now, some of these I've gone over with you. I'm not concerned about the amount of time we have. We have plenty of time. So what I'm going to do is, even though you've seen some of these before, I just want to keep us on track. I'll go through fast the ones I know that you've seen. Okay. Your responsibility at home, even if it's face to face, it doesn't matter. Your responsibility at home is to learn the origin, learn the insertion, and the action. And that you really have to keep up with. You try to do that at the last minute, I think you'd be in a problem. Okay, the trapezius. Since this is human, we're going to get human pictures. Now, I showed you this, I know, the other day. Here's the trapezius muscle right here. As soon as I finish these, I'm going to do it on the cat. Okay, I'm just going to do a section of them. That's the trapezius. Number 2, the latissimus dorsi. Now, once we get into the laboratory, these models will be there. You can spin them around, turn them around, label them as you wish. latissimus dorsi. Number 3 doesn't show, it's on the side here. We'll see it in the next one. The rhomboides are here between the shoulder blade and the spine. The rhomboides. And we'll take advantage of the supraspinatus up here and the infraspinatus here. We didn't see the serratus anterior, now here it is. This is called the boxer's muscle, but serratus anterior is all you can give me on the test. We will be in the classroom for this test. It will be on the 17th of March, and it will be written. Don't worry. I know that sounds formidable, but people do just as well, or a few points less. Not bad on the written test. 51% of the questions, because I've given the test before, somebody else is making it up. I talked to email them today. I'll get an answer soon. But about 50% of the test is just name this. So you get a model like this, and a number could be question 63. Doesn't matter. On your answer sheet, you write infraspinatus, but you write supraspinatus. Here's the rhomboides again, and the trapezius over here. So the only one that's different is serratus anterior here. Now 50% of the test is naming things. Approximately 25% of the test is giving the actions. And approximately 12.5% is insertions and 12.5% origins. Okay. You knew it had to get a bit harder than those bones. Okay, the pectoralis major and minor, we're on the chest here, and over the superficial part of the chest wall, number 5 is the pectoralis major. Here is its origin, this entire circumference here. And when the muscle pulls, it pulls against the humerus and rotates it forward across the front of your body. If we were to lift the pectoralis major, the pectoralis minor is underneath it, which attaches to ribs. The deltoid we talked about a moment ago. Here it is, the shoulder, but we're going to call it deltoid. You can call it deltoideus if you want to. Okay. Here's the supra and infraspinatus again. These muscles down here are different and coming up later. Here's the deltoid. We did the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, the triceps brachii. Now this one really will benefit from having the actual model in the classroom. Okay. The triceps is down here on the underside of the arm. There are 3 parts of it. This is one part. This is the second part. I don't know which student, and now, of course not, may have labeled this. I wish they'd have put a number 10 here as well. This one is the brachialis. And this one that you can't see a label for, you'll see it in just a second, is the biceps femoris. Triceps, triceps. Then always next is brachialis. And then biceps femoris. Here's the brachialis, still number 12, it's maintaining the same. But you see, it's a little bit tricky the first time you see it. Trust me, this will be, like meeting an old friend pretty soon. Anybody want to guess what this muscle must be? If this is the brachialis and this is the biceps femoris, what's this one? We don't get to see it all. The worst or the best or worst that you can be is wrong. I think the worst you can be is silent. So what if you miss it? Better to miss it here than on the test. So
Is it the radial brachialis?
no, but thank you very much, really. The radio brachialis is this one here. Okay, we'll get to that one. We haven't got to it yet, but thank you for giving it a try. Anybody else want to give it a try? Think back to the last slide I showed you. This is on the top of the front of your upper arm, biceps femoris. Now we're going laterally to brachialis, and now we're going underneath. It's the triceps. That's the triceps, number 10. Okay. Now, I don't want you to think, because I asked an impossible question, I didn't expect anybody to get it, okay, that this is going to be an impossible test. That's bullshit. Okay. You'll have these in your hand, to spin them around, and they will be the same things, same models that are on the test. Okay, so please don't get anxious on me. I do not want to do the bones of the forearm yet, because they would make you anxious at your state right now. You're just starting out as far as I'm concerned, and I don't want to do those just yet. I will do masseter, mylohyoid, digastricus, sternohyoideus, sternomastoideus, one other group. So I don't know if you still have a pencil or piece of paper, but I want you to concentrate on the first 12, 1 through 12, and then 22 to 26. Let's look at those. Okay. 22 is way down here. It runs vertically and it closes the mouth. This is the masseter. People don't have trouble with the masseter. They can name it, they know what it does, closes the mouth. Now, origins and insertions though. Well, back up and learn it. The origin is the zygomatic arch, and the angle of the ramus is the insertion. So, the zygomatic arch, which is roughly here, is the insertion. I'm sorry, origin. And the insertion is down here at the angle of the jaw. When you're learning these, I suggest that you see where the origin insertions are. If they're close enough together, use a hand to touch them. If they're not close enough together, you can still visualize where they are. And then contract that muscle physically on your body. Okay. So if you contract this muscle, the masseter, you can only do one thing, close the mouth. So you got the action down too. Okay. Try this origin insertion and then make the muscle work and see what it does. And you should be able to match it up with the action. In this model, number 23, right in the center here. This is the myo or mylohyoideus. Hyoid refers to the hyoid bone. Mylo refers to muscle tissue. That's meaning it's attached to these muscles up here. The mylohyoideus. 24 is covered partially on this side, but it's quite obvious over here. There are two of them. 24 is the digastricus muscles. The digastricus muscles open the mouth. They open the jaw. They lower the mandible. There's lots of ways that you can say some of these things. This number 25 runs from the sternum to the hyoid. This is the sternohyoideus. We had mylohyoideus here, sternohyoideus here. You can only imagine that since they are on either side of the hyoid bone, they must have something to do with swallowing, with elevating the hyoid bone during swallowing. 26 is from the sternum to the mastoid process behind the ear. This is the sternomastoideus. Obviously, there are two of them, but this other one's been taken away. We would go from here to here. Whoops. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. The masseter is still on the side. Mylohyoideus, digastricus, sternohyoideus, sternomastoideus. Okay. Just please, between now and Thursday, you have all of your lecture material. I mean, this is not going to be on the lecture test, you know that. Okay, but tackle those for the human. And then cat muscles required. The second one. Okay. Obviously, this one's cat musculature. Okay. If I end up getting to it, I may change that other one to human musculature. We're going to look at the same muscles, but here the action is important, most important. The action is the same, the exact same. Okay. And the origins and insertions, these have not been condensed. Go ahead when you're asked and give me the condensed version. On Thursday, during the discussion, I will show you a previous test and show you what's expected, what you have to write in. I think it'd be important. I will tape it, okay, and I'll make the tape available. Okay, but you don't want to go and learn all this stuff here unless you want to, okay? All of these things do also pertain to the human, but you may shorten or abbreviate the origins and assertions as done on that first sheet. Okay, the trapezius. The trapezius on the cat's broken into 3 parts. I allow you to just give me trapezius as the answer, no matter where it's pinned. Back here, the spinal trapezius we talked about the other day, the acromiotrapezius, and down here, this piece was the clavotrapezius. The latissimus dorsi, this large flap-like muscle on the side, it extends from this tendon sheath. It does have a name, it's lumbodorsal fascia. You'll get that later. You will get it though. It's not here. Here's the muscle, latissimus dorsi. It inserts rather surprisingly on the humerus. Really important for the cat pulling back. It's important for us to be able to pull back too. The rhomboides up here pull the scapula together. So when we get to number 4, we will say that we just did it. On the cat, the serratus anterior are these muscles that come out in a starburst. Okay? And they did so on the human as well. There's an attachment between them and the scapula. This piece here is the infraspinatus muscle in the infraspinatus fossa of the scapula. So where's the scapula? It's running here, way over here, and coming around. But the serratus anterior, serratus means serrated, yeah, split. It's usually considered by the class as one of the easier ones. This is the latissimus dorsi, pulled up and out of the way so that you can see the serratus anterior. Now we will have cat in the laboratory. Whether it's just me dissecting, and I hope not, I've been trying to get a hold of the lab tech, but he's busy, never by his phone. Don't worry, it will not be one cat per person. It'd be one cat per group, and the group can elect the best dissector amongst themselves if they want, or the most willing amongst themselves if they want to do the dissection. I will do the dissection first, and then I have the tables dissect. I have a set of numbers. Everybody makes a set of numbers, and I have pins, and everybody pins their cat, and they pin it with the numbers from our sheet here. So this gets a 2, this gets a 3. I give you a section to do per day. Then I walk around and I fix anything that's wrong so that you have a perfectly labeled cat. And then usually what happens, out come the cameras so that everybody takes pictures of the perfectly labeled cats to take home with them. Some do surprise me and stay. Okay. The length of time that you stay in the laboratory, to me, is not a consequence that I have to worry about. It's a consequence you have to worry about. You want to stay long enough that you get the material. If you get the material, you don't really need to stay longer. Okay, I'm not a clock watcher. Okay, the rhomboides, oh, we saw that. Pectoralis major is way up here. Now this one is different on the cat. Okay, it's not a rounded muscle like it is on the human being. Okay, this is the pectoralis major. It's a triangular shaped muscle, but it has the same origin, same insertion, same action. Underneath it is a much larger muscle, and that's the pectoralis minor. Minor usually it means small, but we give it, even if it's a cat, we give it the human name, pectoralis minor. There's another muscle here. This one we're not doing. This is the xiphohumeralis. The reason we're not doing this muscle that is important for a cat to climb a tree fast is because human beings don't have this muscle. We don't have it, so we don't ask you to learn it. Okay. This muscle down here, number 11. This is the biceps brachii. We saw the minor, the deltoid. Okay, trapezius was here, here, and here. The deltoid is this one running underneath, diagonally on top of the triceps. Okay, this is the spinodeltoid at the rounded part of the shoulder. Very hard to put a pin in it because there's a bone right there. But B is the acromiodeltoid. And C, way down here outside, is the clavodeltoid. The clavodeltoid, and you don't see it in this picture, but the clavotrapezius run together. Clavotrapezius runs here. Somewhere it switches from here down to clavodeltoid. If I ever pin them, I make sure to pin them high or low, so you don't have any trouble with that. Number 12 is the brachialis. Why? Well, I wish we'd have had a number 10 in here. We will soon. This is triceps, triceps. Then the third head of the triceps is in between these two. And then in front of the triceps, here is the brachialis. This shows the brachialis nicely, number 12, and the triceps right next to it. This was the clavodeltoides. This was the clavotrapezius up here. Okay, that takes care of looking at 1 through 12. So also then, not only on the human muscle, but on the cat muscle, 1 through 12. And then we'll come down to the last ones, starting with the masseter. Here's the masseter. On the cat, it's rounded. In humans, it went from north to south. It went from zygomatic process, which it does here, down to the angle, which it does here. Number 23, have to follow carefully. Here's the pin. It's not in bad focus, but you can't get everything in focus at once. This is the mylohyoid. 24 is here and here. And it's the digastricus, or digastric. 25 is the sternohyoid. The hyoid bone itself doesn't show, but it's right roughly underneath this vessel that's going across. This muscle, it starts at the sternum, goes laterally behind the ear. This is the sternomastoides. Here was the sternohyoideus, but in this particular specimen, it's shredded. I wouldn't use it. The mylohyoideus shows up really well, and the two digastricus muscles show up very well. These days, it seems everybody has got to watch out and be politically correct. I'm not always politically correct, but I mean, I'm not proud of it. It's just my upbringing, I guess, and I let some things slip out that other people go, "Oh, you said that," you know. Look at the people that lose their jobs. News anchors, news women lose their jobs. A whole bunch of people lose their jobs because they said something that came out. I don't even know if it was intentional, but you know what I mean. So the idea is that, of course, we're supposed to be politically correct. Well, how politically correct can you be if you are politically correct, but somebody standing next to you misinterprets what you say and then accuses you of not being? I don't worry about those things, but that's partly because of my age, partly because I've had a full career, partly, well, for whatever reason, maybe I'm a little obstinate, I don't know. But I wanted to mention something that happened quite some time ago, actually. Do I? Okay. When we used to teach in the science math building, and that's not the same as the science building we're going to. There's an older building, but it was okay. We went years and years without getting cats in that had good digastric muscles. I don't know why it was. Maybe they weren't feeding them well or whatever. Students always wondered where the cats come from. The discussion question, by the way, for weeks 4 and 5 for the discussion group, they're up. And one of them talks about cats and where we get them and what we should or shouldn't do. But I would go through the classroom and be so discouraged. No digastric, no digastric. I could show them on a chart, but do they believe you? Well, I suppose they did. But the cats had such puny digastric muscles. You wonder how they could open their mouths. Then we got the semester going, a different one. And I walked through the room this time and I could see digastric muscles. They were beautiful. Don't know where we got these cats. You know, how pathetic that the most beautiful thing in a person's day is to see digastric muscles. Okay. Anyway, there were two girls. I'm not supposed to say girls, but I just did. Okay, because it gives you a picture of what I'm talking about. One was seated on a stool, and one was standing next to her. They were both working on this one cat. And one person took a probe, that's the one seated, this is a probe, and lifted the digastric up. And then another probe in the other hand and lifted the digastric up here, pulling them apart from each other to really show them off. And they were absolutely amazing. It didn't occur to me that while she was doing that, she was leaning over the cat to do it. And a part of her anatomy above the diaphragm was showing, very much so. And it's a part of anatomy that I really never cared about myself, but there it is, you know. And she was showing a lot of cleavage. People would call her endowed. Most people probably call her overly endowed. But whether I saw it or not, subconsciously, I just let it go. And I look at those digastric muscles. And she was pulling them up, and I go, and this is where I made a mistake. I said, you got big ones. You got big ones. And they both, the two girls, stood upright. Like, what the hell did he say? You know, and then fortunately for me, they understood the mistake, you know, and what they thought I was saying or talking about wasn't. But it put me on my toes too for just a little while. Okay, the last one, this was back at week 4, by the way. Okay, so we'll work off of both of these. But the last one that says human muscles expanded and optional. You can do that yourself actually by taking the human muscle link and the origin, insertion, and action out of the cats. That's expanded. I don't want to confuse people. I think it's going to be best if I just take it out of there for now. If somebody wants it, they can ask me for it. Work on these two, the numbers that I gave you, please. Okay. And the recording for today will be down here underneath digestive system. Okay. You can see where we're going to go next. And you're welcome to move on ahead. On Thursday, I will definitely give you some advice as to what you should do with the week that you're going to have off. Okay. Any questions?
I had one question on the cat muscles. So for the cat muscles, was it one to? Oh, sorry. Could you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Is it 1 to 12 and then 22 to 26?
Sounds right.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so you've got some muscles to work on. I don't think I gave you too many, especially since I actually was doing some review there. Okay, but the other thing that you have, of course, to work on is L1, the lecture test 1, and bring with you as many questions as you've got on those, and we'll take care of them. Okay. Okay, I'm going to sign you off, and you can stay until you're the last one if you want to ask a personal question. Otherwise, have a good 2 days, and I'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Professor, I mean,
Yes.
Charlie, I'm sorry. So for the outline, we're doing chapter 10, right?
Yes, and I said I would go over that first thing Thursday.
Okay, awesome.
I have a question regarding the change going back to school.
Yeah.
Are all of your classes returning to campus for this semester? Or I don't know if you're taking or teaching another anatomy class other than this one.
Okay, almost all the other anatomy classes. Look it up in the schedule if you wish. I could show you here, but you just go to Saddleback College, schedule of classes, anatomy and physiology. Okay. Almost all of them are listed originally as face-to-face. They absolutely are required to go back. There's one by a guy named Tony Cipriano, and myself that are hybrid. Okay, and that was so because I knew this was going to happen. At least I thought it was. And that means I could do some testing on Canvas. I had to do the first whole part here on Canvas, but the laboratory is face to face for both of us. So
I see. Okay. So would our lecture exams be possibly on Canvas other than this one that's coming up?
I haven't thought that far ahead. Okay, the next lecture exam's way out there, and if things aren't resolved medically, COVID wise, by that time I'd be surprised. I don't expect it to go away, no, but I expect, hoping it won't be as quite this severity. And I can't do. I have to do a Canvas test for the next week. I told the dean, I can't have the people coming to the classroom worried about everything, putting on their mask, adjusting their mask, trying to figure out how to seat them as far apart as possible, and then give them a test, that they weren't expecting to have a sit down test where you had to use a Scantron. Okay. So I told the dean that he said, well, according to your syllabus and everything, you're right. So that's fine. I guess I actually think I probably could do Canvas in the future, but I have my misgivings about Canvas too. And if you want me to be blunt, as honest as I can, a lot of people cheat when they have a Canvas test that is not proctored with Proctorio. Proctorio, though, is the demon of all time, and I won't use that. But I would rather see people actually learn the material rather than flip a page, or have a second computer, or even have a cell phone talking to somebody else. There's so many ways, as well as I do, I'm sure, if you use your imagination. Do I think people cheat? I think most of the people do not. Do I think any of them do? Yeah, and I don't want to see them get through. I don't want to see them become EMTs or registered nurses or something. The fact is, they never will be that far along anyway if because they'll get caught in the next class. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
that's just my feelings. I just had to say it, you know. So it's whatever we be thinking about, however. Okay. If I were overly worried about it, I would have put Proctorio on. But who the hell needs that? You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for answering that question.
Okay. Well, thanks for asking it. I don't know that we're finished with it yet, though. I mean, the question and the answer. We can come back to it. Okay.
Okay.
Ruby, you gonna show me your dog?
Sorry, I just let her outside. She's like
Oh,
frantic right now.
okay. Yeah. Mine's outside getting a haircut right now. Yeah. Mobile van, mobile vet, or whatever you call it, mobile groomer. So do you have a question? Josh, are you? Yeah, go ahead.
For a minute. What muscles did you say for the human muscles? Were the cat muscles would be the same for the human muscles that we have to memorize?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Otherwise, it gets a little bit too hairy.
Thank you, Charlie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.